All right, buddy. Bill, you ready?
I'm ready,
All
sir.
right, let's do this shit. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Gray Matters Radio. I'm your host, Michael Devine, America's Counselor. I got the armchair quarterback right across from me. What is up, my man?
Michael, how are you?
I'm doing good, you know. I mean, trying to put the country together one, podcast at a time. You know, the way I look at the show, we're having the conversations that politicians just aren't having, and so I figure, who better than me and you to have that conversation with everybody?
Well, we are, you are a man of the people, so.
I try to be.
Well, you're America's counselor.
Well, the thing is that's weird about America's Counselor. I don't know if it was like a HIPAA violation. Apparently, it's kind of difficult to counsel America against their will. Apparently, you have to have like informed consent or something. So we may have been breaking some laws here. So I don't know, but I'm going to keep rolling with it. No one's just knocked my door down yet.
With
so.
a 5150.
Well, we don't have that here in Ohio. That's only California.
Oh, go to California.
I guess we could. I mean, technically, we're nationwide. So, do you realize that for the first time, we had over 4,000 downloads and views for the first time?
And
I know, man.
I'm gonna have to start like wearing a disguise or something. I didn't know this thing was gonna get so big.
I know. Well, it kind of like escalated quickly. We kind of started doing some things differently, and yeah, I don't know, man. It was kind of cool. It just kind of blew up a little bit, and then just like every week, it's just like more and more. I was like, all right, we got over 1,000. And I was like, oh, no, shit, 2,000. Oh, 3,000. And then this week, the first time, 4,000, man. I'm super excited. So apparently, it's resonating.
And only a few dozen of those are your disgruntled ex-girlfriends.
I know.
Who call in and write in those mean things. And
there's many of them.
Only a couple dozen of them.
I mean, our guest that will be on here in a few minutes will probably be able to attest to a few of those angry ones. But hey, we all have a past. We all got a history, right? So before we get started, all right, before we dive in here today, all right, there's a few things I got to get off my chest. I always like to start off with a little kind of like a what the fuck kind of moment. And all right, there's a couple of them, right? So number one, all right, did you hear about the thing about PETA and their new messaging? How apparently pets.
Was that the one with Kaepernick?
No, this is a totally different PETA. It's like People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. So
yeah, but weren't they doing something with Kaepernick, or trying to do something for the Super Bowl commercial and it got nixed? Okay,
I don't know, not
PETA was. I think I read that Kaepernick and PETA were trying to do a commercial for the Super Bowl, and the NFL nixed it. It was like a bunch of animals kneeling, and I don't know what it was supposed to. And the Super Bowl, the NFL said
no. I did not even see that. No.
Well, it was subsequently, I guess, a veterans group. Was trying to do a pro stand for the anthem commercial for the Super Bowl, and
I did hear that.
And it also got nixed by the NFL.
Yeah, I heard that one. Yeah,
right. So I thought you were talking about.
No, the one I'm talking about is PETA basically came out and is starting a campaign to say that we shouldn't call pets pets. Apparently, it hurts their feelings. Well, apparently, I mean, I wish I was making this up, Bill.
Boy.
I really. Because as I said at the beginning of the show, our job is to talk about the things our politicians are. I don't know. I would say PETA is a politician, but come on, this is how you're wasting your donations to make a case for why we shouldn't call our pets pets. Now, I'm gonna have an interview later on this week with all of my pets. I mean, and I know it was a little tough getting them to talk, but I have an interview with them. It'll be on our website, on our YouTube channel, and we're gonna get it straight from them. I want to know because I thought we've been pretty good owners to them. I mean, two of them. We got two cats, two dogs.
Will Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, also be on here?
I don't know. I have an interview call into him. Apparently, you need to have 5,000 views and downloads, so we're just below the threshold for Ace. Okay. So, but I mean. This is what is mind-numbing because it is so tough to get money and airtime and to build up an audience, and that is how you decide to waste your.
Hold on. Now, is this? I gotta ask this. Is this a lone person?
No,
from
PETA, like their
PETA's
website.
campaign?
This is PETA, like not like a member of PETA. This is straight up PETA. Like
so my so if I have a dog, and he rolls over, he licks his own balls, he comes when I tell him. He's your pet.
It's fine.
He's your pet. He's
it's
not your
fine
pet.
as long as apparently the second you call him a pet, it's derogatory. It makes him feel bad. I don't know. It's like their self-esteem. I don't know.
Did the Chihuahua tell you that down the street?
I guess, man. But this is where our politics are at. This is and all the things that are facing, all the problems we're facing in the world. That is their that's what they decided to, to go after.
I like PETA. I support PETA. I think they do a fantastic job. They have a great message.
Yep.
For the ethical treatment of animals. Absolutely.
Who doesn't like that message?
That's what I'm saying. Like
they lost me though.
You have to be like a serial killer or something
I
to
know.
not like or abuse animals. Like you. I mean, you're very disturbed for the people. Like I feel like the people that harm animals should get as much or more prison time than the people that hurt humans. I know that sounds messed up, but I almost have a softer spot for animals than I do humans.
I know it's messed up, dude. It's
just at least with humans, most humans at least have a decent chance to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But little Buckeye and little Woo, they can't defend themselves.
I know,
dude. They just want to love you.
I know, but like that's why I was so surprised. It's like of all the things that you could have brought attention to, that was the one. But and just when I thought, literally, I always do a little research before the show. So just when I thought that was going to take the cake, because I already had PETA as my WTF moment. Literally, one came on literally right before we came on the air, and instead of bumping PETA, I thought I'm going to give him co-billing on this one. So I wish I was kidding about this one. Today, a Minnesota GOP lawmaker claims the U.S. Constitution says it is okay to shoot socialists and call them enemies of the free state. He says it, and now the thing is, now of
we've
course,
been doing that for decades. You didn't know that?
Yeah, so apparently he couldn't he was unable to actually indicate where in the Constitution it was written.
Well, it's in the back.
Well, it's in the back. It's in the small print. It's in the it's like in the weird writing section.
Remember in what was that movie called? Kingpin, the bowling movie.
Oh yeah,
with Randy Quaid and Woody Harrelson, and he's pretending to be Amish, and the Amish guys are kind of questioning him a little bit, and he goes, "You know what it says in the Bible about not forgiving?" He goes, "Why don't you tell all of us what it says?" And he goes, "It's against it." That's what it reminded me of. Oh yeah, it's in there. I don't know.
I mean, this is. This is the shit
that
makes my head explode. That it doesn't say candidate. No, this dude is a state rep. This guy was able to get elected.
This wasn't some whack job who's broadcasting. In his underground network.
No, this is the elected official saying this and then being like, oh no, it's in there. I don't know where it's at, but it's in there.
Yeah, it's there.
So it really.
You just missed it.
This is the type of thing, once again, where it's like, these are the people that we are electing into our electorate. And it's mind-numbing. But we got to elect people. You got to have people running a government. And apparently Yahoo's like this, basically. And so, but it's all right, though. My head's not going to explode.
He's connected to the establishment, so
I don't freaking know, man. Who the heck knows, But it's okay. Usually this is when you can tell the show is going to be one of those. Oh, great, Mike is going to be losing his shit the entire freaking episode, right?
But freak out, everybody.
But all hope is not lost, because our guest that we have is a great friend of mine. His name is Chris Schulte. Chris and I went to graduate school together at University of North Texas, and both in our psychology program. And literally, I found out just the other week, Chris is actually going to be running for Congress. He's going to be running for the 4th District in North Carolina. And it's one of those things where I was just like, dude, come on the show. So we're going to be one of his first interviews, all right? But I feel hope, because it's like when I read stories about yahoos who think the Constitution says you can shoot socialists, but then I'm like, wait a minute. I got a good friend of mine who's running, who's going to be an awesome congressman if he can get elected. We're going to do everything in our part to help this guy get elected. And it makes me feel like, okay, there is hope, because we have people that are running that are not crazy, not running for the wrong reasons, and it gives me hope, and I think we all need that a little bit.
Well, I think it's weird, the dichotomy now of our political climate. On one hand, it's almost like the boys' club, so to speak, where if you're not backed by the two major parties and you have financial backing and you're not in with the right people, and it's almost like you have no chance. At the same time, you see someone like an AOC who comes out of left field to win, and then it gives all these people hope. So it's kind of like it's a little bit of both. It's very strange.
But there's a movement going on.
Well, absolutely.
And without ado, Chris, my man, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing great, man. I just going back to the talking to your pets kind of thing. I really think that we did quite a bit of talking to Nibbles back in the day, man.
Nibbles,
man. I know Nibbles. I don't know if Nibbles was, felt like, he was, disenfranchised because we call him a pet, but that cat had it made, right? I mean,
oh man, he loved chicken wings, man. He was all about our parties on Sundays.
I mean, literally, Nibbles was he thought he was like a human. I think he was almost angry that he wasn't. He was like this weird, like he would steal like my food. Like I remember like one time I was eating a steak. My mom called, walked into the back room, and he started dragging my T-bone off the plate, and then looked at me like, "What?
Yeah.
This is my steak."
My cat Lou was like that. He used to eat my Chipotle burrito. He would literally, I would have my burrito, and he would come up with his paw, and he would grab it, and he would pull it to him, pull it, take a bite, eat the burrito to my stunned, right? And then I'd go to take a bite, and he with his paw again, pull it. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
So maybe we should be calling him pets. Maybe we've had it all wrong the entire time. Maybe Chris, maybe that could be your first order of business if you get elected.
Chris, wouldn't you agree though that most of these pets have it better than humans anyway? I mean, look, they get pampered, they get, we do everything.
I inherited 3 cats, or I guess adopted 3 cats. My wife had 3 when I met her, and they live quite the life.
Absolutely, as they should, really.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll be someone's pet. Hey, you're gonna pamper me all day, feed me on command, rub my belly.
But this is where, even though we're making jokes, and you almost got to make fun of some of these things, because it's the only thing that's going to keep you sane, right? But it's one of those things, like Chris, like when you're thinking about running and you're seeing the things that elected officials are saying, people on the campaign trail. I mean, this has to be like a giant reason for why you're deciding to run. I know it's a big reason for why I started doing the podcasting, but tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your journey to running for Congress. Just, lay it on us, man.
Yeah, well, I moved here to North Carolina in 2008. I am a college professor in psychology, and being a state employee, I have seen that I have not gotten any significant raises for the last 12 years that I've been employed here. I'm actually making less now than I was when I was back in 2008 starting out.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
I know, but I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, it's
right?
Obviously, hey, that's the way it goes. And, North Carolina doesn't tend to take care of its state employees, especially its teachers. And, of course, when you talk community colleges, we are especially the lowest on the totem pole then of the importance. But, as I was here in North Carolina, when I first moved here, I noticed that it was a pretty progressive state. It was kind of purple. It was there was some liberal thinking, some progressive thinking, and then Barack Obama won in 2008, and this state just went way right. And that I was still okay. I was like, all right, everything will be all right. We'll make it through. But then Trump happened. And certainly after 2010 as well, the Tea Party came in, and just these extremists on the right were taking over everything here in North Carolina. They had super majorities in both houses. It was unbelievable. What the
was
kinds
it that
of things
sudden? Was it really like that? Was it like one election, or was it just like fine extremism?
It was to me, and I mean, I'm no expert on the movements of it, but it certainly seemed like it was pretty quick around 2010. It was just this big, quick shift, because apparently before I even moved here, Democrats ruled the roost for the longest time around here. But then, of course, I move here and it all falls apart. But
it's a weird coincidence, isn't it?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. But the thing was is that 2016 happened. My son is 3 years old now. He was actually born the day after the election. Obviously, being a Democrat and liberal-minded and progressive, I was quite distraught at the thoughts of losing another Supreme Court justice and all of the other extremist things that were going to start coming from a president like Donald Trump. I was just distraught, but then I was also had like one of the greatest days of my life with my son being born, and he had to end up in the NICU. He was about almost 6 weeks early. And we had to take him down to the NICU, and my wife had some health issues as far as giving birth overall. And so what ended up happening is that she had to kind of stay up in the room, and I got to go down to the NICU with my son. And as I was sitting there, I was looking at my son, and I was the first person to really hold him and feed him and do the skin to skin stuff that you're supposed to do with newborns and things. And I was loving life, but I still had this thought in my head, like, this is just wrong. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And I remember distinctly saying to my son, my brand newborn son, hours old, I said, you got to fix this, man. I'm sorry, but you've got to fix this. And, I very quickly after that, when we got home around Thanksgiving, that I started to say, you know what, this is an unbearable burden to put on the next generation of kids. I mean, what am I doing to make the changes that are necessary? And so I decided to get more involved in the Onslow County Democratic Party, the county that I live in currently. I ran for chair at that 2017 convention. I lost that election because nobody knew who I was. But then an opening came up for a vice chair position, and I ended up as the second chair, and I'm currently the third vice chair of the Onslow County Democratic Party. And so I thought, well, that's a good first step. But there was always something pulling me inside saying, you know what, you need to do more. You need to actually do something. You have to be the person that makes that change. You need to run for office. But, being a full-time employee, state employee, having a young child, and then I just had my daughter about 6 months ago. And so, it's, oh, well, thank you. That it really, especially when she was born, it really reiterated to me that I have to do something. I have to run. I have to make a change in some way. And although it's a blood red district here, that I really think I've got a chance because, I'm not a politician. I'm not somebody that's going to go out there and tell you what I don't actually know. That I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try and do what I think is best. That would make the world a better place for my kids. They're my why. Like, I know it's cliched, but those kids, I mean, looking at them, I'm like, man, we have to change this stuff, and I can't wait for them to do it.
It changes everything. I mean, Bill and I have talked
Yeah.
all the time about in the show how having kids really, you can't be selfish. You can't look short-sighted because we are handing this world off to them. And I think, it's interesting because the story that you tell is a story that you hear so many people talk about, people our age, I think, because Chris, you and I go way, but we know each other a very long time, and we never talked all that much about politics, maybe a little bit, but, it was one of those things to where, like, we cared a lot about people because we wouldn't have gone into psychology if we didn't care about people. I think we were equally both frustrated with some of the BS, the bureaucracy of our university and our programs. And we both had the same idea of, like, you know what, I'm just going to get out while the getting is good. But you and I were very similar in that matter, which I think a lot of people, but we didn't really talk much about it. But we see people like our age where they get to the age where they're in their careers, they have children, then all of a sudden you can't ignore things anymore. And when you can't look at yourself in a mirror and go, I care so much, not only can I not stop thinking about it, I'm either going to go on Facebook, pass memes around, rile people up, or I'm going to do something about it. I don't know what, but I'm going to do something about it. And that's why we did our podcast, because I was like, I am so done. I remember my story was I was coming home after I literally had a couple clients that day, all freaking out about when Trump won an election and what's been happening ever since, and then conspiracy theories and just on both sides. I mean, the Democrats and Republicans, man.
Conspiracy, man.
Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, I feel like I'm in triage and I'm just packing people up, putting them back out in battle anymore. And that's when I realized, like, I can't just be silent anymore. And like you, not going to be happy just, maybe in a periphery. And so it's funny. I mean, are you noticing the same thing with other, like, family members, friends, where it seems like so many people are frustrated about the system, but yet you don't see enough people going, hey, let's get some different candidates in there. Let's demand something different. What are you hearing from people just in and around you as you've started deciding to run, the encouragement people have given you? Like some of the reactions that you're seeing.
First and foremost, the support has been overwhelming. I mean, at first, when I decided to do this, I kind of backed into it because I was right up against the filing deadline. My party came to me and asked me if I would run, and I said, maybe, I guess. I mean, is nobody else going to run?
Got some guy on the other line was about some white walls. Let me get back to you.
Yeah, exactly. But the support's been great. I mean, I'm getting messages from folks I went to high school with, friends that I haven't talked to in over a decade, messaging me, giving me calls, saying, go, go, go. Even some of my more conservative friends, they've also said, hey, you're a good guy. I don't agree with you on much of anything politically, but I know that you'll do the right thing. And so, I mean, I think that's been a big part of it is that, in talking to some family members, I've got a cousin who he's talked about always wanting to run, but he just hasn't done it yet. And I heard him the other day. We were chatting about me running, and he said, I think I might need to run for city council or something like that here soon, or a county commissioner or something like that. And so, I mean, yeah, I think I'm hearing it from a lot of people.
It has to feel good, even like when you get it from both sides. Like I think here in Columbus, I mean, you're originally from the Cincy, West Virginia-ish area, if I recall, and the Midwest is like this bellwether kind of state. And
Dayton, man,
Dayton, yeah, my bad. All right, close enough, right? There's an
don't throw me
in
in that
there.
West Virginia part of the state.
But it's like we're such a bellwether state to where I think you're going to get some far left, far right, but I think most people are just kind of slightly right, slightly left. And it's funny because like a lot of my friends I've had on the show that are far left and far right, it's amazing how it's like they'll talk with somebody who they trust. It may not agree with you. I think our good friend Ryan once said, he goes, I don't agree with you, but you're not an idiot like everybody else.
Yeah, you're not as much of an idiot, which is like, okay.
But and that's what I think. I think there's something happening in this country, even though like, I always think, what is that saying? It's always darkest before dawn. I hate that saying, right?
It's actually factually not true. But...
It's actually not even true, right? But I do think one of the things coming out of this election and in just our climate that we're in is that I think I'm seeing people wanting, even though we do see the oxygen get sucked out of the room with people that are far left and far right, but people almost kind of going, regardless of ideology, I just want to trust you. I want to know that you're in this for the right reason. Even if I don't agree with you, I just want to know that I think you're making the decisions that you think are best, even if I disagree. Are you seeing that sentiment yourself, or this kind of changing of a tide at all?
Yeah, I do. I think that, and I mean, obviously, I surround myself with academics, so I mean, it's a different kind of environment. But certainly, I think that just in general terms, I think if you can kind of clear away some of the insanity of the social media world and everybody retreating to their corners and stuff, we really want to solve the same problems. We recognize what the problems are, and we all want to do something about it, but we kind of retreat to our corners, like I said, in which that it's like, oh, well, I'm team blue, you're team red, and whatever team blue says, I'm going to go for. And that's no way to make change.
Now, do you think like, this is, I tried researching this, before our show, and that, because I know I want to eventually get into the realm of politics, you're actually beat me to the punch. I love you for it. Right.
Right on.
But I was literally sitting there going, how many people in the mental health field have actually run for office and won? And for the life of me, I have not seen many. And so like the thing is, and that's just why I was kind of curious, because I was sitting there going like, who is better prepared to be a candidate? One, we don't take sides. We're about evidence.
I thought you were going to say you don't take any shit from anyone.
Oh, we don't. I mean, well, sometimes. It just depends on the client, right?
Depends on the day.
It depends on the day, the client, what kind of mood in, how much coffee have I had, how old they are.
How much my student complains, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Are they cash pay? Is it a sliding scale? You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
But think about like, we're trained to listen, right? To be non-judgmental, to look at evidence, look at the bigger picture, how to communicate things in a way people can, hear. Like, do you think that is an asset for running for office, and why haven't there been more of us actually running for office?
Well, I think that one of the main reasons is what I said a little earlier is that there's such a focus on fundraising and on having the right connections, and it takes such a commitment. And for those of us just working Joes like us, I mean, I don't want to sound cliched because I'm some elitist college professor and stuff, but yeah, the thing is that we work full-time jobs. We got kids. We've got things we got to be doing. And so I can't be sitting at home all day making phone calls to donors and stuff. And I think that's a big thing that pushes people away, especially from our field, is that,
The big
that
politics aspect of it.
yeah, it just feels dirty. And really, honestly, when I first started and I kept getting this fundraising thing pushed on me, like, you got to make money, you got to make money, you got to get money to win. And I really did. I felt just gross in the process. But I've come to grips with the fact that this is the system we've got. And so I'm going to have to find a way to kind of carve my own niche in that. But and I think that certainly that adaptability of being a psychologist certainly helps in that, and also being a teacher, having to kind of change stuff on the fly to help people understand is going to be an asset.
And that's where I think, and even we had when I was on Voice of the Radical Center in Austin, we had a state senator on, and one of the things he said, he goes, the system is set up to where you can only be rich to run. He goes, they'll give you almost no money. Their per diem is like a joke, right? If you travel half the time, you're almost getting paid out of your own pocket. And he goes, and I asked him point blank, I go, if I catch what you're putting down, and I was like, you can't say it, I'll be cool. But I go, is it set up to where they don't want regular? I even finished my sentence. He goes, yes. He goes, it is set up to where, you don't want to get regular folks in there. And what's interesting, we've seen in Pennsylvania, we've seen a couple senators and congressmen win in very kind of moderate kind of regions where they were able to win on their own terms. And it almost seems like it seems like more on the Democratic side than a Republican side, where the Democratic side is, if you're in a contested region, they're almost kind of letting you just do what you want to do. I believe, what was it? Oh, was it Lamb? I believe the guy's last name, Connor Lamb. He was a pro-life Democrat, and they're letting him basically do his own little thing. Like, do you see in your region, because it is a very red region, do you see the party kind of giving you a little bit of leeway? Like, hey, I'm going to run my campaign the way I need to.
Well, as a first time candidate, I don't really have much connection to the state party, but I can tell you that there's been a lot of support so far early on, but it's been one of those things where they have kind of just left me to my own devices down here, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. It's just that I don't. I've never done this before, so the support is helpful. And I mean, I don't, like you said, I don't want somebody telling me what I need to be doing to run and what issues to talk about and what stance to take on them. But certainly that support's always helpful. Just like anybody doing something for the first time.
There was something like we were talking before the show, just kind of going over, kind of game planning everything. And one of the things that we started talking, I know, where I teed it up a little bit was what happened in Texas, where it was a special election. The national kind of party came running in thinking, hey, we're going to win this thing. And one of the things they kept saying was, you made it too national. And that's why they lost. The people are saying in exit polling, you kept talking about making it a national issue. And it's like, I want to hear about what's going to matter to me, what's going to affect me. And that was something where you jumped on it right away. And that was like, that's the biggest thing that you believe right now. Let's not make it as national. Let's bring it back to the local level, what local people's needs are. How is, our representatives going to serve you, and what matters to you? Talk a little bit about that and why you're so passionate about that, and why in this election and in this time that's needed now more than ever.
I think that the biggest reason that that it's so important to maintain that local focus is that it doesn't have to be as polarizing at the local level, because it is affecting each and every one of us directly. I mean, certainly on the national level, that stuff affects us, but you're not really going to notice it day by day in the same ways that you will, if you actually have access to healthcare in rural areas. Which my district is a very rural district in Onslow, and then all of Duplin County, part of Onslow, all of Duplin County down here. That's District 4, very rural, actually very similar to the area I grew up in Ohio. Farming is kind of the main economic driver. Lots of poverty, lots of problems with the school systems, things like that. And so, I mean, those are things that, just little changes can really make big improvements in people's lives, and give people a greater chance to really grow and change and be the best that they can be in that process. And I mean, obviously as a psychologist, I always lean more humanistically, and so it's kind of a process by which, hey, if we can nurture people, if we can give them the environment that's right around them and the support that they need, they're going to grow. They're going to do the healthy things. They're going to do what's best for all of us. That's just kind of my philosophy on it.
What are you kind of hearing from your constituents, just like as you've been involved in a party, getting involved in the politics scene, and now actually running? When you're out there talking with people, like, what are people really telling you? What keeps them up at night? What do they need from their representatives? What is bothering them?
They need people that are going to focus on everybody. There are so many people that I've talked to that they say they just feel left out. And I think that's a big reason that, the Trump movement really took on so much in a very populist way, is that he spoke to some people that felt like nobody gives a crap about me. Nobody's going to help me. Nobody's going to support me. So, here's this guy that's telling me he cares about me. Let's go for it. And I don't think that that's something that a lot of people are getting, is that sense that, hey, you've got my back. The people that I can vote for are going to do something for me. And that's why I think also that my district is such a Republican district, is because I think the Democratic Party just kind of lost favor in showing people that, hey, we do care about you too. That I think we lost some of that overall, even though, I mean, obviously being a Democrat, I don't believe the Republicans are actually honest when they say they care about everybody. But
wait, are you saying the politicians sometimes are not always
so honest,
being honest and upfront with everybody?
Absolutely.
Kissing babies and.
Well, that's something, Bill, we've talked about in the show many times, is that and I think that's like something that a lot of people on the show have really expressed that were, Trump supporters, that it's like, you guys don't get it. Regardless of whether or not you like the guy or not, he spoke to people in a way that made them feel like they mattered, regardless of whether you feel like he actually really cares, regardless of whether or not you think he has policies that are really helping them. Mm-hmm. There was something that was tapped into of, no one else cared about me. I think this person cares about me. And that should send a very loud, a very loud shockwave through all of our establishment, that you guys don't care. But then, you and I were talking about this on the show, though, but then it seems like when you have like a poll, right? Let's say it was, all right, 75% of people wanted witnesses to be called, right? And now these same people were 50-50 whether or not they thought he should be impeached, but 75% were, we think there needs to be witnesses. And our Senate and our Congress has gotten to the point to where it used to be public opinion polls. If it came out in one direction, the next day they changed their opinion. This is the first time.
It's like, well, we're going to do what we want to do, and you're going to vote for me because if you don't, the other guy. Well, sure,
exactly.
They know what they're doing. I mean, they're not stupid. They know that's divide and conquer.
And that scares the crap out of me, Chris. That we have elected officials going, not only are we not going to listen to you, we're going to overtly say we're not going to listen to you, and I still think you're going to vote for me. What do you think? What do you think feeds into that, and what is it that you feel as though that you want to bring to the table that's going to be different, that's going to be a change?
Well, as an educator, I think I see this in my classroom as well, is that there's just been this movement to anti-intellectualism, a lack of critical thinking skills, an inability to look at evidence and make conclusions from said evidence rather than your just personal opinion. And that I in my classes when I teach critical thinking, especially in my intro psychology classes, I use a metaphor. It's kind of silly, but I think it's apt. Is that if there's this big boulder sitting in the room, and that boulder is the problem, it needs to be moved 50 yards that way. That what we need to do is that as a large group have to get together and figure out what's our plan as to how to make this move. But what we don't need is this group of guys over here that somehow got elected, but sitting here saying, I don't believe in boulders. There's no such thing as a boulder. And hell, I mean, maybe boulders we need more boulders. Maybe that's what we need.
We need more boulders.
More boulders.
Yeah.
More boulders,
Brilliant.
guys. But I mean, that's the thing where it's like, and good guest of ours, Dan Evans, in one of the shows that we had, we were talking about anti-vaxxers, the anti-vaxxer movement, and one of the things that he said, he goes, because he's like, he called himself out in his field. He's like, you know what we haven't done a good job of is us intellectuals, us researchers, we haven't done a good job of learning how to talk to people who are not intellectuals. We're making them feel dumb. We're making them feel like they're idiots. Of course, they're not going to listen to us. So why? If we're not really going to listen to them or talk to them in a way that they don't feel like they're being heard, why would they hear us? And it's like, it really made me think of, we have to do a better job, whether it be elected officials, teachers, researchers, that how can we find a way of talking to people that maybe don't understand the science, but not make them feel like they're idiots or we're talking down to them? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think more than anything, it's just those basic counseling skills that we were taught all those years ago. Is you got to listen, but I mean, you have to actively listen. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm listening," and all of a sudden you're getting through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of that crap. But
or the Dr. Campbell.
Yeah.
It depends.
It depends, or just stares at you until you give the answer to her. Shout out to Dr. Campbell there. That was
we
that
do
was
like
nice.
you did train us well, but
Absolutely. But it was brutal. But I think that just by listening to their concerns, is that they may not know the technical ins and outs of all the research and all the stats and things like that, but they know what's going on around them. They can see it. It's not something that's hidden from them. They know that it's hard when you have a chronic illness and have to go to the hospital with no insurance, that people are going bankrupt in their neighborhoods because of farms closing down, or their inability to find a job in their area,
or a job that pays a decent wage.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think everyone can find a job. It's just, can you find a living wage?
I mean,
absolutely.
That's the thing, and that's like where I always get frustrated because when you look at data, it was funny. We had it was like, what was it, snowflakevictory.com, when Trump Jr. came out with a step-by-step how to win arguments against your snowflake friends, right? Ironically, on the same day that on the same day Trump came out going, we need to work together and learn how to have more understanding. I'm like, all right.
And if you don't want to come together and have understanding, well, then screw you, because my son's going to tell you how you stink.
But like,
That's right.
and what was interesting, we went down argument by argument, and the economy one was the most interesting because depending on what numbers you want to use, the economy is great, or there's a lot of holes in the economy. And I think when you look at I think Democrats need to give credit where credit is due. There are some really positive things going on in the economy. However, though, there's a different story where, unemployment rate is up, but the wages are stagnant. The CEO pay, from the top CEOs down to your lower level, is the greatest it's ever been. More wealth has transferred to the upper 10%. What do they say? The 10% of the world owns, 90% of all the wealth, or something stupid like that?
10% of the population owns 90% of the wealth, or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it's like, so you have people that are working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. And not even adjusting for inflation. I mean, things cost a hell of a lot more. And so it's like there is a tale of two economies here, and it gets into that intellectualism. Depending, you don't want to think or don't understand the data. So whatever your echo chamber is, if it's Donald Trump, if it's Bernie Sanders, the economy is either great or we're about to enter a depression and we're screwed. And so we have to find ways of talking about issues in a way that people will stay engaged and listen. So we're going to try it out here. Okay. We're going to test a few of them out. All right. It's your first interview, which I'm so happy for. Right.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you picked us. I just was like, dude, you're coming on Monday. So you weren't going to say no, but I was like, all right. So there was something that you talked about in your story. And I remember when you were reading, I didn't even know this until I read your reasoning and why you wanted to run for office. It was after we both moved away, and you're talking about your son, right, was in the NICU.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
my daughter was in a NICU. Eleanor was in a NICU for about 2.5 days. Now, mind you, it was like the most minimal, like just nasal cannula oxygen. She aspirated a little meconium, before she was born. And I remember my wife is a nurse. I'm self-employed, so basically her insurance is my insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's a nurse, works for a hospital. You'd think amazing insurance, right? And we had like an $8,000, almost $10,000 bill. We have insurance, right? Yep. And that's what we had to pay. And now, mind you, my wife, in her growing frustration, where she worked in a NICU herself, she always laughed the irony of a NICU nurse had a baby in the NICU. But she's like, we'd have people come in, and they were drug addicts. They'd have like 7 kids already. They would, have some kids taken away to CPS. And why is it that we work our asses off? She works for a hospital. We paid 10 G's for our daughter to be born, and mind you, a minimal, right? But the people who are on the Medicaid system and Medicare. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to have these safety nets, but when you have people who are drug addicts having babies literally because of their no prenatal care, drug use, being on vents for like a month or so because they're premature, racking up $200,000-$300,000 in bill that we get billed as taxpayers, they don't pay a dime. And we had, she said there was a doctor at her hospital that didn't marry his girlfriend solely because he could deliver her because she was on Medicaid, so he could get paid to deliver his own baby. And I look at that going,
well,
it's a problem, right?
I mean, he's not doing anything wrong. It's the system.
It's
the
system, right?
Sure. I mean, you'd be a fool. Let me just voluntarily give up some money, or I can follow the rules.
You're right. It is the system. But the question I have for you, and this is putting the candidate hat on, so we're gonna put the friend hat off for a second. But it's like, okay, so when you look at healthcare, because I know healthcare is a big thing with you, that's the thing where I feel unheard. I feel that being a hardworking middle-class person, I feel like I don't make enough money for Republicans to care about me, but I feel like I'm not poor enough for Democrats to care about me. No one ever does anything that's going to help us and our health care out. My daughter has asthma as a result of some of her stuff when she was in NICU, and our insurance company literally goes, no, we're not going to pay for the medication. Never mind that it works. Never mind that every time you've taken her off of it, she has asthma attacks again. And it's like, why is nobody talking about us? And so I know healthcare is a big thing with yours. Help me understand like what your view of healthcare is, and maybe like what some of your ideas are for, hey, what is it that we can maybe do to fix some of these things?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a complex issue, but just to kind of piggyback off of what you said a little bit, I mean, when my daughter was born almost 6 months ago, she didn't have a NICU stay, but we did spend like 2 days in the hospital, and I think our bill's probably $7,000-$8,000, and we have insurance. I mean, I have state employees, Blue Cross Blue Shield here in North Carolina, and it's pretty miserable. I mean, I had an allergic reaction. Just broke out in hives all over my body several years ago now, and I went to the doctor. They said they didn't know what it was. They were like, "Did you eat something different? Did you do this, that kind of thing?" And so they had no idea. So they sent me to a dermatologist. It took a while to get into the dermatologist. So I'm sitting here not sleeping, scratching my whole body like 24/7. And they say, "Oh, well, just this steroid spray, this should really clear it up for you, right?" And so I go to CVS, my pharmacy, and they say, "Oh, we tried to call you. That's going to be $1,200 for this tiny little bottle, right?"
Man.
And I was
one
like,
bottle. Is there like gold in there? I mean,
I know.
Was there like
that's
little
what
tiny nano doctors that were going to solve it? I mean,
yeah, I don't know, but when they said that, my first reaction, I probably can't say on air, but it's one of those things that I just was like, well, I obviously can't afford that. And they were like, well, you can maybe get some coupons. You could maybe bring it down to like 300, 250, something like that.
That's a mortgage
So
payment.
I
Come
know,
on,
it's
that's
insane.
I know. So, I go home very distraught. I'm like, apparently I'm going to die from hives. Just never going to have these go away. And my wife, the great loving person that she is, she's calling around asking people, do you have any of this Corda spray stuff? And one of her teacher friends said, yeah, I've got some. And she said she would give me a bottle, a month's supply of it. And my wife, Shelley, she said, hey, what do I owe you? And she was like, don't worry about it. I get 3 of these at a time for $20. And she has TRICARE, which, I realize that everybody thinks that socialized medicine is a dirty word, but I mean, why is there that big of a difference pharmaceutically speaking there? And so, I mean, honestly, again, I don't know what the perfect answer is, but what I do know is that every other major modern industrialized country in the world has some form of universal health care that is socialized in at least some way, if not at least moving in a public option direction in some ways. I guess Netherlands is a little bit more of a conservative approach to it, but I mean, their conservative approach was basically Obamacare here, and so it certainly is no socialistic takeover overall. But if the rest of the world's doing it, why the heck can't we do it? I mean, they say we can't afford it. Well, how do these other countries do it?
Well, a perfect example was so there's 2 competing bills. It was an attempt to bring down prescription drug prices. So the Democrat one that passed the House basically was like, wait a minute, we can do this really easy. So the reason why on TRICARE it was so cheaper is because my father, he was a chief resource officer of a healthcare system. He was on an earlier show talking about these pharmaceutical companies, device manufacturers, they can literally shop around the different hospitals, different regions. They can charge whatever it is they want. They can change the pricing depending on how many people you have coming through. They change it, right? And so the bill was basically, to lower prices very quickly, you have to basically, we're going to have the same contracted price process that you have for Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE. So basically, we would be paying insurance companies would be paying the same exact price as TRICARE and Medicare. You know what the pharmaceutical company said? And of course, they were sponsoring the Republican bill. They go, so what's going to happen is that people are going to die. We're going to come out with 3 less drugs a year because of the money that we're going to be losing. And so really, you do that, people are going to die. That to me is what is wrong with our system. And to me, it's the most un-American thing when we have corporations that literally made billions off of the backs of our country.
Forget un-American.
Yeah,
it's
sociopathic. They're willing to hold a gun to the head of the country. Go, don't make me do this. Don't make me do it. Not because what they're saying is true, is because they're going to make less money for their stockholders, less money for their board, the billions and bonuses they pay out. Where is our government to go? That's messed up, guys. Like, we should not allow this. And yet, what happened? The Senate Republicans were able to shoot it down, and they allow our country to be held hostage by the. I mean, I don't understand how you make America great again when you allow companies to hold the American people hostage for greed.
Yeah.
How many houses do you need? It's like, how many cars do you need?
That whole greedy kind of aspect of this lack of compassion and empathy for other people is the scariest thing I think that has really happened over the last 5 years or so. That it's appreciable. I can tell that there's just a lack of care that I've never seen in my life before in the same ways. But there's so much of that in which that like I said, I'm a state employee. I'm a teacher. I don't get paid nearly what my degree and experience should be paying me. This whole argument that somehow if we don't let them make billions and billions of dollars, they're just not going to invest. They're just not going to do their jobs and things like that. Doctors, aren't making $350,000 a year, they're going to stop being doctors. Well, how do you explain a teacher making $29,000
Exactly.
doing their job?
Yeah.
You know, I don't get it. I mean, people need to just, you know, take a step back. It's like, you got to care about other people. That's just all we got to do.
I don't understand like why they're allowing it though, and I know it's tough because you're not elected yet, and I know it's, but this is what I don't understand. Is like why are they doing it? It almost feels like they have blackmail on everybody going, well, I guess we got to let them do it.
Well,
I mean,
they do. They got the medicine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we all know it's BS, but it's like the people, though, that don't know it's BS are the ones voting for people. And they're going, you're absolutely right. That's going to happen. We can't let the Democrats do this. They're going to kill us all. And I'm curious, like, as a clinician and as a psychology person, where it comes into me is that when we have fear, right, we automatically start losing empathy. They did this really cool neuroimaging study where they wanted to understand like why, what they looked at with addiction, they looked at when people in bad situations, how the brain works. And we have a part of our brain that is about thinking about other people, and we have a part of our brain that's about thinking about us. What was fascinating when they had them do tasks where it was about only for you versus you're thinking about other people, they realized that part of the brain is mutually exclusive. You can't be thinking about other people and being selfish at the same time. And it seems like our between the media, the politicians, the second politics got to the point to where you're dehumanized, I don't even want to work with you. I don't even want to compromise. When politics became a zero-sum game of, you know what, we got to win the whole damn thing because it's easier to do that than it is to try to compromise with people, they started using tactics that it dehumanized people. It brought about the fear. It brought about the anger to where, you know what, I don't care. You can be a Christian and care about your church and your congregation, but then when kids come across a border that need help, that is literally the tenet of Christianity, mysteriously, all of a sudden it doesn't matter anymore. This is a giant problem. And, as a candidate, when you're looking at, I know education, you're talking is a big thing, and you're talking about how much poverty there is in your district, how much money, lack of money on resources. How do you overcome getting people to care about people who aren't them, that they almost blame for being in that situation? Like, as a candidate, how do you overcome that? And, what do you do with it?
Well, I think that the answer really does come from, us psychologists. I love patting ourselves on the back, but, it certainly is that, it's that whole idea of us versus them. I mean, as long as you see yourself as fundamentally different from somebody else, that's that dehumanization thing you're talking about, is that once you see yourself as, oh, they're different than me, you're perfectly fine whatever happens to those people. And this just world phenomenon kicks in which oh my gosh, if you're poor, it's because you made bad decisions. If somebody's rich, it's because, well, they worked harder than everybody else. And I think that the best way to kind of break through that is to help people see how we are on the same team.
Yeah.
Whether that is, playing to the patriotism of Americans and that kind of stuff. I don't think that's probably the best route, but you can humanize it by saying, what if this was your kid? I tend to find that people that are so anti any changes to healthcare, the second their kid gets cancer, they're all of a sudden like, we need to do something about this. Or they're so against, like we had the bathroom bill down here in North Carolina, and everybody's like, oh, I don't want some transgender dude in my daughter's bathroom and attacking her and stuff like that, with no evidence that ever even happened. But it was their concern. They were so scared about it, and they had to pass a damn bill to do it, to discriminate against people that wanted to just use the bathroom. I mean, it's not that big a deal overall. But that until they have a family member that is transgender or homosexual or whatever it is, it doesn't register to them. That, so many times I teach abnormal psych, because, obviously I was a trained counselor.
And a little abnormal.
Yeah. And I'm a little abnormal.
Yeah,
absolutely. But, a big discussion in there certainly is that, so many people are dealing with a psychological disorder, but such a small portion of them actually seek out help. Why is that? And that discussion that we oftentimes have in my class is that people don't really even realize so many people are suffering needlessly for a multitude of reasons. Biggest one usually people say is cost. And so, I mean, that's another big issue within healthcare, especially in rural areas like I'm in, that, you know, rural healthcare and mental health care is extremely important. And that, you know, some of these people that are so against any changes to that stuff, there have to be some people that have a cousin or a friend or somebody that is addicted to opiates and needs help, but there's nothing. Like they close down the clinics in the area. People need a hospital stay for their kid, but there's no openings. Somebody needs a psychiatric bed and they're all full, and the closest place is 3 hours away. It's those kinds of things. I know that it's kind of dodging the question a little bit, but it's one of those things that, you know, we have to get people, because you can't teach empathy, but you can certainly get people to recognize that, wait, this does impact me in some way that's meaningful.
You always have to route stuff. I always say sometimes you have to route things through people's own narcissism. How does this affect me? And that's where I don't think people realize, like, whether it be drug overdoses, whether it be equal opportunity, whether it be crime, people don't realize that, like in Colombia, one of the ways that they were able to kick a lot of the cartels out of Bogota and Medellin in the big cities was the president that took over in the early 90s was like, everybody's going to get the same high quality education. I don't care what town you come from. Everyone gets a high quality education. And a mysterious thing happened when people realize I have choice. I don't have to be in a gang. I don't have to be in a cartel. I can actually make a living. May not make as much money, but I'm going to be alive. I can have a family and I have children. Mysteriously, cartels could not recruit people. And that's the thing, is that when we get people to go, well, I don't want to invest. My kids don't go there. But it's like, you don't realize, we always talk about crime. We talk about our taxes. We talk about healthcare. You reduce the amount of people going to emergency rooms from drug overdoses. You reduce the amount of people going into crime and gangs. You'll save money, and on top of that, you don't have to worry about crime. And then on top of that, you're a human being. You help people. Right. I know it's not even a convoluted way of connecting. It's just we haven't made that connection, and it's tough. So, I know we're running a little out of time here, but I want to give you an opportunity where. And I hear a lot you're coming from. It's almost like we have to it's not like about making America great again. It's about making America care again. It's about making America care for each other again, which is the most American thing, I think, that we can do. It's the most selfless thing. It's the most, there's a duty to it. It's why I do this show. It's why a big reason seems like why you're running. And so if making people care again, so then they'll pay attention and go, maybe we need to do something. Then comes the second part of, okay, what is it that we need to do? And I know you're big on, I want to keep it local. I want to make this about the people I'm representing. I'm not trying to run for the bigger office. I want to represent you. What are the big things that you really want to go to Washington and help your constituents out with? What are the big things that they're listening tonight going, what is Chris going to help me? What is he going to represent, for me? What are some of those things you want your constituents to know?
Well, first of all, that I'm going to Raleigh, not Washington, but that what I want the people of District 4 to recognize is that, I live here, that I care about what happens here. I care about my children's education just as much as I do everybody else's kids' education. I care just as much about the health of my family as I do everybody else's families. And that what really drives me in this process that is, certainly there are a lot of better things I could be doing with my time than, trying to run a campaign and kick this off the ground. But, I felt like I had to do it. And that what I have to do is to get the message out there that there is a different way. We can have the discussion. I didn't give you a direct answer as to exactly how do we fix healthcare in North Carolina and in the United States, because I don't think there is one answer. That what we need is all of those voices from both sides coming with equal evidence for their sides. Then we can find compromise. But until that point happens, we're just talking at each other. We're not talking to each other, and we're not going to be able to find the solution.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I respect that so much, not because you're a good friend of mine and I think the world of you, but it's just
Love you, bro.
I love you too, my man. And I love the fact that someone for once it's refreshing for somebody to go, and I pride myself on this too, of, you know what, I don't know the answer to that one, but I'm not going to lie to you and pretend I have one, because it's damaging. One, it's not modeling that, hey, it's okay to not know it, and I respect that, and I love the fact that it's about bringing civility again. It's about making people matter and care again. And it's like, that's my job, and I want you to know I'm representing you. And I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know all the right answers, but as a clinician, I know how to listen. I know what I know what's evidence. I know what is BS. I know what isn't. I'm not here because I want to be a senator. I'm not going to be bought up. I just want to help. I could be doing so many other things with my time, but I want to do this, and I'm willing to sacrifice because I care about this for my own family, but your family too. And you may not agree with me on absolutely everything, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find a candidate that is as genuine and that shows that I care about you guys. And that, to me, is all that matters of our elected officials. You know, and we need to get away from this whole red, blue, whatever it is. It's, I care, and I'm going to help serve you. And I think if we can get more people like that, we're going to get people that listen. We're going to hear what everyone needs to say, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. You know, we're going to get kickback from the establishment. They're going to sit there and put the gun up to the head. But we need people that are going to go, I don't give a shit. Like, that is not right what you guys are doing. I don't care whatever BS you're going to put out there in a tweet, or whatever your lobbying firm is going to put out there to try to get me unseated next year. I don't care. Right is right, wrong is wrong. We got to start calling it out for what it is. And I think we need more people like you in there, man. And it's refreshing. I think I'm excited that we have a lot of people like us going, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to do this or not, but F it. I'm going to do it because it's the right thing. And if we can get enough of us in there, man, dude, we can make something special happen, man. I dig it, regardless of what our parties are. I think there's something brewing here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know it always sounds very cliched, but we really can start a movement that it's just normal people. It's that kind of citizen legislator, the citizen politician. That we need to go back to that kind of idea. It's not that I'm going to go up to Raleigh and then it's up to DC and I'm going to make this a career. That's not my goal. I mean, if that's what it ends up being, and I'm making a change consistently as I'm going through those steps, so be it. But that's not certainly in my plans. I don't anticipate, going that far with it. And certainly, North Carolina only pays their state representatives $13,000 a year. So I'd be taking, even as a state employee, a pretty steep pay cut to be able to go up to Raleigh and do that job. So again, it ain't for the money. It ain't for the power and influence. It's just that, somebody's got to do it. And I guess it's me.
Bill, any questions for the candidate before we bug out of here, man?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, do you feel, the whole process, do you feel like it's overwhelming, or do you feel like you're just like an outsider going to like the wolves' den? Because there are so many career politicians, and there are so many people that just, this is what they do for a living. I mean, it used to be, the way it was set up was, a person would come in from the private sector, come in, do their, be elected to a public office, serve their 4 years, 8 years, whatever, and then go back to the private sector. And like we've talked about before, it doesn't work that way. Now they go from one thing to another thing. I mean, do you feel like, a little out of place or overwhelmed that you are going to be competing and be around people who maybe don't see it that way and are more polished and know how to play the game and more connected, so to speak, than you are? Is that
kind of like the Bengals going up against the Philadelphia Eagles? It's kind of like that level. I'm not going to say you're not the Bengals, but you are a Bengals fan.
Maybe not as polished.
Hey man, I stopped watching the NFL about 3 years ago, man. I
don't blame you, man.
The Bengals are terrible.
We're gonna get Burrow. maybe
well,
if he goes there.
whatever. I mean, they'll ruin him too. It's as long as Mike Brown's in charge, it's all over.
That's how bad the Bengals are. This is like the most optimistic, forward-thinking guy, except for the Bengals. Going, man, they're just gonna ruin whoever we bring over there.
Yeah.
I can fix Congress. I can't fix the Bengals. That's right now.
There are some lost causes, but in answer to Bill's question, is that really it is overwhelming sometimes. I kind of vacillate between extreme optimism, like I'm going to do something, to what the hell am I doing? I don't belong here. Certainly, I don't fit in with the politician crowd because I mean that's not me. I'm not polished. I'm not somebody that's gonna always have a best answer for you, but I certainly am going to try and find an answer to any questions and concerns that people have. That's my job as an educator, is to find the evidence, come to conclusions, and present. I mean, whether that was doing research in grad school or in my classrooms, that's just what I do. And I think that I have to remember that yes, it's stressful, yes, it's horrible having to make phone calls all the time and beg people for money, because unfortunately it costs a lot of money to run even a small state campaign like this. I hate that. That's not my personality at all. Mike knows me. I'm a fairly introverted guy. I hate talking on the phone more than anything, but yet that's what this job entails, apparently. And so yeah, it's been a real transition. And like I said, I've only been really at it for about 2 weeks because I had to ask permission from my college to even run, and they just got back to me a couple weeks ago and said yes, you can run. But the thing is that it's one of those shifts in which that at first I was really overwhelmed, like especially when I had that first fundraising meeting, like you got to raise all this money, and I was like, I don't think I can do that.
Put that pressure on me. What are you doing?
Yeah, what? Like, why can't I just run? Why can't the Democratic Party just throw a whole bunch of money at me? And
I am awesome. Can't you see that?
Get some of that Bloomberg money and throw it my way.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess like $1 million. That's like $20 to him.
I know, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what, man? Like if there's anyone who has a temperament to do all this, it's you. I mean, honestly, man, there could be like a crisis brewing. If there's somebody who's, I want finger on the button, I want it yours. You can be like, well, let's talk about this for a second, guys. Like, I know there's some IBCBMs in the air, but let's really kind of weigh this one out. I feel confident knowingly you're going to be in there. Now, as we're going to bug out here now, can we set up, like, I know technically you're not allowed doing this, but like, if they're like aliens, can you like do something like, like some type of like signal, like yay or nay, kind of like if you actually drop your handkerchief on the ground, you pick it up with your left hand, then I know it's like legit. I'm just saying, like, some wink and nod system. I mean, I don't want to mess up your security clearance before you even get elected, but I'm just saying, like, saying like I love Captain Crunch a lot. I don't know, something that you can't prove that you disclosed anything.
Mike, isn't there a problem though? Everyone knows. Anyone that knows anything knows that the majority of Washington is already run by the lizard people anyway.
I think the Greys are in charge, but I guess we'll find out. Maybe. I mean, you might be a Grey yourself. This might be some giant ruse. That's how brilliant you guys are. It was underneath my nose the entire time.
And you didn't even see it.
You and Nibble. I know Nibbles looked at you kind of weird all the time, man.
Oh, he did, man. He did. I was never really sure what was going on with that cat, but he was something special.
So, all right. So, tell everyone where they can find out more about you, campaign everything, man.
Well, I have a website, votechristopherschulte.com. And so definitely go check that out. I'll be putting more information up there, certainly as I kind of put together my platform a little bit more. Like I said, I've only been at this for a couple weeks, so it's not all done yet, but there'll be more coming. And there is a donate button there. And as much as I hate it, it takes money to run a campaign. And so any donations from like-minded people out there that are supportive is certainly appreciated. And, I certainly have a Facebook page, Christopher Schulte or Chris Schulte for North Carolina House District 4. And then I believe I'm at Schulte, the number 4 NC, both on Facebook and Twitter, and I believe even Instagram as well. So I'm going to have all those different medium to be able to get my message out there. And I thank you guys a lot for letting me come on and talk around for a little bit.
No, man, I thank you so much for coming. I know it's a little bit of a whirlwind, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on to the show and just, and I think it's just really important, man. And, I'm going to put all your links where they can find you on our blog, all of our social media, so they can kind of find us and go and find you as well, and I'm just happy that, once again, we're probably not going to agree on absolutely everything, but I know for a fact you're going to go for the right reason, and I will always get behind somebody that I know is there for the right reasons. And so, and I'm just excited. I'm going to be pulling for him, man. I'm going to do whatever I can to kind of help. I'm also going to bust your balls if I feel like, hey, I'm going to challenge you on something. That's how it rolls.
Hey,
but I don't think you would ever. Right. I don't think you'd probably think something was wrong with me if I didn't at least challenge you. If I really.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's how it kind of rolls, though. So,
yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And on that note, Bill, I think we've done our job here. What do you think?
I think we have as well.
I think we've done our job. I think we've educated everybody, and hopefully we'll stick that new large audience, on his website.
And hopefully he remembers us little people when he gets elected. I might
oh, absolutely.
I've already asked, like, hey, can I get the first exclusive? He goes, well, we'll see what happens, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be questions about aliens and stuff, I don't know if I want to come on the show at that point in time.
That's when it gets real. Like, Mike, I can't answer that. I'm gonna get a publicist.
This is a political opponents are probably going to use clips of this show to use against him. Unfortunately, did you hear what this guy was saying about aliens?
Look at this guy.
And the lizard people. It wasn't me. It was the idiot co-host that mentioned the lizard people. Clearly, it was him. It wasn't me. And
yes.
I know. I don't blame you. Throw us under the bus because that's what we're here for. It's okay.
That is what we're here for. So on that, everyone, I'm Michael Devine, the Armchair with the Armchair Quarterback on the Armchair Quarterback on the 614 Radio Network.
All day.
And I'm Michael Devine, America's Counselor. And this is Great Matters Radio. Remember, everyone, the next time someone asks you, you a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're red, you're blue, well, just say fuck that noise. My ass is gray. All right, everyone, you be good to each other. Be safe out there. We'll see you all next week. Peace.